This is the podcast about the meaning of concepts in business.
Ready?
Ready when you are.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, our dear listeners of our already second podcast of Biz Culture. And today it's my pleasure to speak to a very nice gentleman here in front of me, Vasilis Lampropoulos. I hope that I have pronounced your last name correctly.
Perfect.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, so our first podcast, we spoke with the lovely Christina Drija, and mostly we focused on our own selves, on our identities, on our own stories. And the thing that I remember she emphasized and she focused on the most was that each one of us is the creator of our own story. So it's up to us, first of all, to look at ourselves, search for ourselves, and then start from the new page and start creating who we are, what do we want to, who do we want to be, what do we want to do. So today we'll try to slightly touch upon that notion as well. And however, mostly we will focus on communication, on different small cases, on different small situations that are happening nowadays in our personal lives, in our businesses. And Vasiliss is going to help us see his perspective and not talking too much anymore, just trying to introduce the topic that we're going to talk about today. So the topic is the meaning of communication, and we will speak about the battle between order and chaos. So first of all, Vasiliss, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? What are your main responsibilities at the moment?
So I'm a social media manager. I deal with complexities that mean managing social media accounts. I have managed different types of social media accounts from businesses, politicians, and institutions. My background is a dual background, basically, because my first studies were on graphic design, and I dealt with different parts of graphic design as well, from web design to illustration to animation, video, photography, everything. And my second one was basically on the larger aspect that's social media, which is basically virtual communities. So social media are online communities, which is just a part of what could be a virtual community. I am quite happy, basically, because on social media I get to do both the things that I studied, which is quite a privilege, I would say.
Okay, so I see that you have a lot in common and you do a lot regarding social media in different kinds of spheres, yes, and fields. This is kind of your main task at the moment.
Indeed, yeah. I basically, when you are active on social media, you anyway need to see a post or your activities on the accounts from different perspectives. It's not only the text part, how you will address your audience, what you will say to your audience, what kind of keywords you will use, and since your podcast is touching on concepts, this could basically kind of relate to hashtags on social media, so to say. Then you also have to deal with what kind of visual you're going to use. Will it be a video? Will it be only audio? Audio is actually kind of rising right now with new apps taking place. Twitter is launching its own app, and Clubhouse is kind of like taking over. And then, of course, as I said, you have video, you have images, you have different types of visuals and different approaches to reach your audience, which is quite interesting. So yeah. I get to apply both these things when I work. You have to think of different approaches in any case, and that can be quite interesting.
Yeah, it does seem exciting. And as far as I also see that there are a lot of different kinds of opportunities, at the same time dangers, at the same time, different kinds of goods and bads, as we say. But maybe let's start with the beginning, from the beginning, and let's start with ourselves. So virtual identity and our own narratives of how we are communicating, how we communicate on social media. You've mentioned before when we spoke about the so-called trying out different kinds of identities on in the virtual world. So let's say on Facebook, I'm one person, on LinkedIn, I'm another person, and then in another, in Instagram, I'm one more person, presenting one more identity. So what about this? How your own experience working in this field, how do you feel? Is it still kind of, is it easy? Should we really change those identities? Should we maintain one? Or what's your perspective? What's your point of view on that?
Well, actually, I mean, there are two different concepts that I find. There's the virtual self and the virtual identity. The virtual self, or who we can be, and not necessarily who we are online, would only be defined as what we want to be. The virtual identity, on the other side, is the way we deal with it nowadays. Basically, is more like using some different sort of identity card, so to say. So I'm on LinkedIn, I'm this cool professional. On Facebook, I'm this laid back person. On Twitter, I'm to the point and with updates. On Instagram, I just post cool pictures, for example. But all these identities are sort of the same person. The existence of social media pushed us to transfer who we are online. So basically, we are who we say we are. I cannot really lie. I mean, technically, my Facebook profile, for example, my personal Facebook profile is not my first name, last name. However, anybody who is looking for me will be eventually able to find me because, I'm sharing my pictures. I am, they will see it's me, basically. So you cannot really hide who you are anymore. And I'm only saying this because in the previous version, because social media is called Web 2.0, basically. So in the previous version of the web, there was not so many visual stimuli. So you could actually quite redefine yourself. So you could actually have a different virtual self. If you remember those ICQ chats, for example, we could be whoever we wanted to be, and we could be as rude as we wanted to be, or as polite as we wanted to be, or as back in the times, quite polite to the people who had the power to kind of upgrade us to an admin position, so we can actually do whatever we wanted. But also these chats that we had online back then, they were quite more not liberating. They gave you the possibility basically to be whoever you wanted to be. I think I gave you an example as well, like in the past when we were teenagers as well, we used to tease each other, especially when chat rooms started appearing, that I was talking to this really cool girl from somewhere, and then we would tease the other person. Yeah, it's a half naked man in his cellar, like 60-year-olds. But as much as strange as this could be, it actually showed you something, that you could actually reinvent yourself online, and you could be a completely different person. You could have a completely different persona, which for some people also could be quite liberating, which is something that in the new version of the existing social media, people want to have fixed identities. I am that person. I put my picture, I am said, I am the best version of me that I can be. I'm not a completely new person. I'm just the best version of me. Even if you try to have fake accounts and kind of reinvent yourself in a way, the system kind of doesn't let you nowadays, because the platforms, because of different scrutiny, have been really attacking the fake accounts. It really demands, and I'm telling you this as a social media manager, it really demands a lot of you to basically maintain a fake account, like really handle it as a person. So I would say that our the change from the previous version of the web to the newer version when it comes to virtual identity is that that our virtual identity is more defined, basically.
What do you think about that? This is my kind of personal interest as well. It's, for example, you go on LinkedIn, and of course, we know that this is a platform much more official. You see people with their official pictures, and then professional photos taken, and of course, those nice, slogans, logos, whatever. And then if you move, let's say, on to the same person's Instagram account, and you see that they're wild, they're completely different, let go person, and there's this difference. And sometimes I wonder to myself, the LinkedIn profile, should we really be kind of that different? Should we really be that protective, of our own self that we show, let's say, on Instagram, but should we really hide it as professional business people or professionals on LinkedIn? Because sometimes you feel that huge gap, and I always wonder, is it that necessary, or can we just have some sort of balance and show a bit of that our own self on LinkedIn the same? What do you think?
This is a huge question of ethics, basically, that's popped up lately as well, and when it came to hiring people, because companies, although, now lately they've started stating that, they don't go looking into what you do on your social media, although this might not be 100% true. If your profile is out there, if it's public, the first thing I would do when I meet somebody is kind of Google that person, at least put a face behind emails or something. And, without being able to control myself, I would, of course, come through different results. Now, probably myself, I'm sort of more lucky because there's a very well-known football player and a journalist under my first name and last name. So usually they get the focus. But the thing is, the ethics behind this is when we are at work, as normal people, when we are at work, we have a professional attitude, and this is what professional attitude means as well. We try to tone it down, listen to other people, and be professional with everything that this term encompasses. When we're with our friends, we kind of lay back. We can be who we want to be, and this is kind of mirrored through our different social media as well. LinkedIn is the professional network, and then Facebook is a bit more relaxed, and then Instagram even more. And the more private the networks get, the more loose you can potentially be. Now, the thing is, if your profile is public, for example, on Facebook, then that gives everybody the opportunity to kind of see who you are and what you do as a person. And here where the ethics come in is where people are starting to say, you cannot look into my profile on Facebook and what I post there, because I post to my friends, and it doesn't necessarily mean that's who I am. This is actually also the difficulty, I would say, with this, is that on LinkedIn, we have enough time to basically think of what we want to do as well. We will not go see a post and just, directly, don't get me wrong, there are people who most likely will do that, but you see less and less people who would jump in and just post rude comments or bad comments. They have to be rational. When I'm saying, for example, I don't like what you're saying on LinkedIn, I have to provide a rational explanation as to why this is not the case, because other people would say you're not professional doing this. However, on Facebook, this is not the case. We also don't understand, I would say, this is not a bad thing that on LinkedIn we're thinking. While on Facebook, we don't necessarily jump into, put the brain behind the hands and, kind of think. And I would say that there are two different aspects that you can see here, actually. One is people don't really understand that what's written is written. And when you're writing something, that cannot be taken away. Even if you delete it, it kind of remains there. And then also how you expand your network. On LinkedIn, you can expand your network. You're not afraid, basically, that you're going to write something strange that people are going to see and be like, what is he saying, or she? But on Facebook, you kind of feel more loose to actually do that, and then you also expand your your network of people. Like, we meet, I barely know you, we become Facebook friends, but I continue writing the things that I'm writing. You don't know me very well. Let's imagine, for example, that I'm a hunter and you are a vegan, and you see me posting, oh, here it is, me hunting, the nice little rabbit, and you go nuts. And we start this clashing. But in reality, if we knew each other and if we took enough time, we would have probably understood that, this is Vasiliss, typical Vasiliss, you kind of let go, but you don't really, because this written stuff and us not 100% knowing each other leads up to lots of conflicts. Plus, you tend up to network also with kind of like people you knew a long time ago, and aunts you don't even know, and cousins you don't really well know, and this, as I said, leads to lots of issues. So just to link back to what you said before, is I would say that it's not bad to have our digital identities, but it's also very important to recognize what each network does and what we do in each network. And very importantly, because this starts to change more and more, to check our privacy setting and who do we bring into our networks. As we would do in reality, you wouldn't go out, saying to everybody in the world, hey, I'm, I don't know, half naked drinking beer. You would not say these things. You would be careful. You would only say it to your friends. Yet we do that. You see people posting. And I'll give you one last example with that, of people not really having a huge concept. In Greece, there was this Olympic champion who took part in, I think it was in the Athens 2004 Olympic Games. And she made a declaration on Twitter. I'm not going to say what she said, but it clearly showed that she did not have an understanding that you cannot, especially when you're a public persona, you cannot really say whatever you want. It's resulted in her basically being disqualified directly by the Olympic
committee,
Olympic people in Olympic committee in Athens. But you kind of start to understand it doesn't only apply to public people; it applies to each and every one of us, basically.
I love this the moment when you said that LinkedIn makes you think before writing, before posting something. I think that this is one of the biggest issues now, and especially I guess I've noticed that maybe because now we do spend a lot of time on social, in this virtual world, because in pandemic, so that's one of the entertainments nowadays. But that people do feel the right, or they feel that they have to post, they have to write, they have to comment, and they start those little fires everywhere. And this is kind of it seems like this is now natural, or the new normal. I'm not sure, but you were also mentioning about this this idea of conflict causing, that somebody said something, or we don't know each other that well, and it causes some sort of reaction. Let's talk maybe a little bit more about those small chaoses that you were mentioning, also before, and that we tend to think about something global. We tend to think about some big problems, big issues, that are happening in the world and in our country, but everything begins with ourselves. Everything begins here, in the environment, and in the community that we are in. Maybe the family, maybe the community, our Facebook community, whatever. So if we don't listen to each other, if we don't think, as you said, before writing, before posting, it might cause a lot of those fires and chaoses, and then they spread and they become into something very, very big. So what's your input here?
Well, I mean, as I mentioned in the last time we spoke, I'm the kind of person that doesn't necessarily believe in this big overall conspiracy theory that there's a specific group like taking care of things and like managing things, because the strength and power of human communities is much bigger than that, and the uncontrollable effect that things have when set in motion. Even if you say, I'm going to, click it here, tick it there, and lead it exactly there, you will be sadly mistaken. And I mean, maybe people here in Europe react like this, but people in Asia will react differently, and Africa will react differently. So, and I mean, you don't need to go that far. I mean, from one friend to the other, you tend to be completely different in the way you react to different things that you see or read online. And this is also what causes us to clash as well sometimes online. I basically believe that, if each one of us is a stone, then, when a stone comes, with lots of force, it could cause the other stones to start moving, and then you end up with an avalanche without actually knowing why it started. I even told you a joke just to, make things clearer. If I'm allowed to basically say this again, I'll try my best to translate it because I knew it in my native language. So basically, this joke goes like, there's a tribe of Indians, and the tribe of Indians usually consult their shaman when it comes to the time, to see what they will do for winter, how they will prepare for winter. Will they prepare a lot or not a lot? And usually they would go and cut trees down to, light the fires. Now, the shaman, as being very nice, usually he would go out to his people, he would talk to them and say, I will consult the spirits. The spirits being inside his teepee was this small little radio that he tuned into his favorite radio station, and he would get, the meteorological forecast for the days ahead. So that's what he did. So he opened it, and then the forecast guy says, it will be a quite mild winter. We will have no issue. The forecast looks good. So he goes out to his people, say, hey, my people, go down, go to the mountain, just get a few wood, we will be fine, the winter is going to be mild. So he goes back to his teepee, just, tunes on the music, just, relaxes. All of a sudden, there's an update. The forecast guy says, well, actually, the winter is going to be a bit harsher than we thought. So there's a cold breeze coming in through the north. So you should prepare for a bit tougher winter. So he goes back out again, gathers his brave people. He says, go out because I think the spirits told me it's going to be a tougher winter than we thought. I would urge you to go and, cut more wood. So he goes back, just eases, listens to the music. Again, an update. Coming in last minute, the winter is going to be quite heavy, and you should prepare yourself for, quite strong, icy breezes coming in from the north. He says, okay, what's going on? So, he just goes to the radio station to find the meteor guy. He says, okay, hi, I've been listening to your, broadcast. So what's it going to be? Is it going to be a mild winter, or is it going to be a harsh winter? And the guy says, well, it's going to be a super harsh winter. Did you see the Indians? They're cutting down the whole mountain. So, this is basically shows you, the whole chaos procession, and where basically we're saying, we're saying something, we think it's not impactful, and yet it impacts somebody in a very strange way, and could also actually, it lands back into our faces.
Viz Culture. This is the podcast about the meaning of concepts in business.
So you kind of see it quite a lot on social media, where basically people are reacting a lot to things being posted online. We have also an issue. We have the age of political correctness quite a lot these days on social media, and that's quite impacting it. I mean, there are events happening on a global scale, and I think the biggest reason why humans clash is because we don't understand how inextricably linked we are to each other, but really to each other. And digital only reinforces this, because we are, there's no geographical we're not far apart, but exactly, we are so close to each other, much closer than we actually think whenever we do something. There's no time limit. I can read something at any point and react to it at any point, and you would see it at any point as well. So this definitely brings us back to really reading something before reacting as well. I would definitely see it like this, that you always need time to listen, whether you are an individual or a business.
Exactly. I mean, You know, as you said, the influence that we have on one another, and we don't measure that. We don't think that yes, I do something, he does something, and that's it. But then maybe three other people are affected by that without us even knowing. So thinking and before reacting, I think that this is something, and getting to know, you know, what you're actually doing and what's the purpose of your comment or your post or whatever. What about as you were also mentioning, you know, that now that there's no distance, no, you know, time limit, nothing, and each one of us, whether you're a business, whether you're an individual or a public institution, all of us are extremely interconnected. There's no, you know, that one does one thing and then it doesn't affect somebody else. So we have those kind of, you know, probably three large perspectives or three large focuses. Yes, we have the state, we have some sort of business or business people, and then we have the public as the marketplace of people. So our communication regulations and the influences, you know, on how we see, how we talk things, as well as our interest. How communication is happening there? How is this effect, you know, affecting? Because you also said that now we have a lot of those, you know, restrictions, and we have a lot of things that are happening, especially on social media. So how does this triangle work then? You know, what's the effect on one another, and how does it work nowadays in this digital world?
You mean between individuals, institutions, and businesses?
Yes.
Well, I mean the communication on social media in specific of each one of these triangles, basically of these parts of the triangle, basically is quite different. A business is more driven to, I mean, first of all, a business takes the individual as a consumer. The institution takes the individual as a citizen, and the individual sees itself as an individual. So whenever I'm doing something, I will see, you know, how it impacts me personally, my family or friends, and then I will go out to the, you know, larger scale. So it's more micro than macro. Then for the businesses, I would probably say also, depending on the business, that the businesses sometimes are kind of like in between. So the larger scale usually goes to institutions or governments, or, you know, or bigger organization, basically having to see the bigger pictures, a picture of what's happening. And then a business, depending on how big or small it is, could also be the same. If, for example, you're dealing with a multinational company, they would probably have a larger picture, but at the same time on social media, they would also probably be split into country desks, or they would be split by focus group, for example. So the way that I think that each one of them impacts each other is that individuals want to, I mean, users, or however you want to call ourselves. So we want to basically go out on social media. We want from a business to, you know, service our needs ASAP now, and we want to know from the institution or, you know, body or organization how this thing works ASAP. In general, we want the information much faster. Now, businesses usually can cater to this much faster. But at the same time, since they're more towards a profit gain, they expect to make profit basically out of this. They're not going to reply to you just because of this, but they want to have a conversion rate. So usually they're faster in replying, but at the same time, you know, you have to keep in mind that they want to sell. And institutions, on the other hand, they are more, they will be slower in replying, because the procedure in replying to something is really internal. So, you know, the person replying, unless they know the reply to the question directly, they might need to consult a legal unit or a specific unit dealing with a specific policy. So that takes, trust me, a long time sometimes. But the reason why it is the case is also because institutional organizations are more liable to being accused of something, because, you know, they're dealing not only with citizens, they're dealing with taxpayers, so they want to make sure that everything is okay. And usually this is why a reply sometimes can be quite like, what are you talking about? I don't understand. The phrasing sometimes can be a bit intricate, so to say. Businesses on the other side will, as I said, reply faster. The thing is, we are all linked in a way because the institutions are making the regulations around how the business are functioning. In our case, for example, take it for social media, for instance. The institutions are managing quite a lot of what has to do with privacy. And in Europe, we're quite privacy geared and privacy focused. So when you launched the GDPR, for example, the GDPR affected the way social media works in Europe to begin with. And with a newer policy being launched on the Digital Single Markets Act, that's going to impact, probably, nobody knows yet, but that might impact businesses even more, because it comes to do with where you store your data, how you handle them. So this, as you see, impacts business, at least digital business. In this particular scenario, it impacts social media platforms. It will impact websites, e-commerces. Businesses, on the other hand, they try to make do with with how rules are changing, but by trying to be flexible and move, fast, they will try to either overcome the obstacles or, try to make it, clear to the individuals that, look, if we get more penalties, we won't be able to reach to you. So, it's a twofold thing. On one hand, servicing their customers, the users, us, and at the same time, kind of like trying to tell them, come on, you can demand more. And us, as the last and first part of the pyramid, we want things done faster, but simplicity is not necessarily without complication. For something to be super simple, either a big mechanism is put behind, or there's something behind it. Like what the people were telling you, if something is free, then you are the product. Well, that's quite true. Then I would say that in the end of the day, I think we want things done faster. We want things to be personalized, to feel like it's done for us. This is more easier, of course, for businesses and less easy for institutions to do, to show you how your individuality is catered for, so to say. I don't know if I've answered your question exactly, but
no, perfectly fine. Yes, perfectly. This is, I guess that at this moment for our listeners and for myself, it's much easier, to comprehend this whole, who's responsible for what, who's doing what, and the activities and why some things happen not the way we want them to happen. So you've clarified it very, very nicely. Maybe let's.
If I can add, if I can add something. Sure. I would say that sometimes I also find that people are quite, having also dealt with accounts and, social media makes you hear different voices, basically, I quite understand when handling accounts, I quite understand some comments, some comments are really horrible and strange and some make sense. So I would just take these and say that some of them sometimes make sense, but I actually see the viewpoint of different people. And in this particular case, I would say sometimes, people tend to be very critical about, the way big organizations or institutions or, governments do stuff. And I would have to say that when you're managing the bigger picture and when, for example, you have to treat it to all the citizens, then you cannot really do much. You have to try to take the middle point that basically makes the bigger percentage of people okay with something. So that's a very, very difficult choice to make. Well, businesses, for example, they do not always have this choice. They would say, for example, my consumer, my target group is XYZ. So this is very specific. Beyond that target group, if I get them, I get them. If not, I couldn't care less. So for example, I could launch a campaign that basically supports a lot this X group, for example, but that X group finds it incredibly offensive. But you know what? This target group, I couldn't care less because they're not the people I want to sell to. So let them be. An institution can absolutely not do that. So, it's very easy to say, to clap hands and say, oh, particular business, you're fantastic for doing this, congratulations. But on the other hand, for the institution, this is never a choice. And this is again linking to the beginning of our conversation, where we basically sometimes need to listen before we react, and because this will also impact quite a lot on what we demand. For institutions, it's very important to basically, when, for example, you're launching a petition, that it also is a petition that could make a change, rather than just saying, I like poodles. I would like for poodles to be protected. Does it make sense? Not necessarily. So who should listen to it? But if you have something that actually needs to go through, it will go through, and people will pull behind it, and citizens will pull behind it, I would say. Citizens is the favorite word for institutions, by the way. Yeah.
What about very shortly? I mean, I like this idea that you mentioned about when you're a business person, when you're a business, and then let's say when you're communicating online or other platform, then you think about your target audience. Yes, you think about the people who are your users, who are your buyers, let's say. What about the value? For example, I'm a beginning business person, and I decide to launch my e-business or e-commerce somewhere, on Facebook, whatever. So what would be my choice here? Should I just, because I see that, okay, something is rather popular at the moment, so should I just dive in, with that idea, and forgetting my own value, or not even knowing my own values per se as a business person? So I just go, what the demand is, or should I be a little bit more careful and kind of maybe do a bit of observation and research and listen, to first of all what my value in the long term is going to be, instead of just rushing and targeting those people that I need now? What's your intake very shortly on that?
Very shortly, I would say it's definitely a good idea to kind of like monitor things, and then also finding your niche, because what the internet has brought and what social media has brought is the possibility for us to basically identify, a small piece of land, so to say, that it is fertile and we can actually work with it. Rather than just going in to a topic that has been super discussed and it's super covered, for example. Like instead of saying I do clothes, to say I do bio, sustainably sourced local clothes, for instance. That could be niche, and that could actually work.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. What about the future? Well, even let's say if we think about the near future, on how do we communicate, and how is communication going to change or not to change on social media? What's your perspective on that? How do you see what's going to happen? As you spend a lot of time in dealing with different kinds of, from different angles. So what's your intake here?
Well, actually, the way I see it, I mean, there are lots of technologies that are going to be rising. There's virtual reality, for example, and augmented reality, which are stepping in, and if they are well implemented, they will be game changers. I mean, I've read somewhere also that most of the companies are looking for the new mobile phone. So, to kind of like cut the mobile phone and switch to the new version. What that could be, probably we might end up with a Star Wars sort of thing, save me Obi-Wan, you remember that thing in Star Wars, a hologram. That would, I mean, whatever technology rises would also impact the way we communicate and how affected we are with it. The first thing that, for example, I would see as a technology being implemented would be something like, we used to have like the Google glasses, where you could basically see stuff directly on the glasses that you're wearing. Apple is, I think, experimenting with it at the moment. But that will, I mean, how you receive the information will impact your communication quite a lot. I think also at the moment, digital takes a lot of part of our lives. And I would say that would some things might change depending on how we move out of the lockdowns as well, but digital is there to stay. I think the digital communication part and all the meetings we have, I would imagine also, and I hope not only that, but imagine and hope that the future of work, for example, would be a future where you basically decide when to go to the office. where you pool your meetings together and, you kind of meet and you don't have to be there 24/7. I mean, unless of course you are kind of doing a business that you have to be there. I cannot imagine, for example, somebody doing a cleaning, they say, today I'm teleworking, I'm cleaning your house from my own house. That would probably not work. But on the other hand, I also see stuff happening with platforms. Maybe hopefully you see a rise of new platforms, new social media, platforms as well. There might be lots of changes because in Europe we're pushing a lot for the privacy aspect of things. That might be a make or break thing for larger platforms, especially the US ones or Chinese ones. On the other hand, I see lots of regulation being put into place, but on the other hand, people usually just go for that anyway. Like, for example, everybody says TikTok is a privacy nightmare. Don't do that. And people are just going there because it's fun. Why wouldn't you? It's like, your mom telling you, I don't take the bike, you're going to hurt yourself. Well, I'm going to take it anyway. So I also see, new platforms rising just because of this aspect. But in general, I think that our communications are going to change even more. I think it's even more important nowadays that we try to have fun online. I mean, it's a very difficult mindset to basically just say when you're online to just switch to a more positive mentality and say, you know what? I'm not going to be grungy. I'm just going to share fun stuff, and I'm just going to stick to that. Just to say, this has actually been proven by Facebook itself because they ran a test in 2014 where they basically serviced more than 500,000 people, 689, I think, people with only positive or only negative news. And the experiment clearly showed that whenever you were serviced negative news, you tend to share negative news yourself, no matter just the negative news you shared, but you just would find the negative thing and just share it. And the same thing with positive. You would get more positive news and you would share more positive news. So this also shows the chaos thing that I talked about. Yes, it is manipulation, but on the other hand, you don't know how people are going to react. And from this experiment, nobody knows how people were impacted and how this 500,000 users impacted other users and other users. Currently, I mean, Facebook is quite a grungy landscape, I would say. And also the latest generations don't necessarily choose Facebook to be on. So you can see that, this is quite impactful. So I would say, take time and, have fun on social media whenever you do them. And don't do social media just to do social media,
Don't push yourself too much. Yes, don't make it work. I mean, don't make it like work, because then people become too stiff. And I think that also causes the soul, being the grudge, as you said, just kind of some negative emotions and things like that. But yeah, thank you. It was pleasure listening to you. I have a game for you, Vasiliss. We always have those short association games with our guests. So I'm going to give you some keywords.
Games are fun.
Yeah, games are always fun. So let's have this. I'm going to give you a few keywords, and without thinking, just tell us the words that pop into your mind immediately, like what happens there. Okay, so let's start. So the first one is conflict.
Resolution.
There you go. Social media.
Fun.
Reinvention.
Discovery.
And virtual self.
New self.
There you go. We see it's a fun game, and you've done it perfectly.
Absolutely.
Have you rehearsed? Because you've done very nice. Thank you for such a positive vibe that we've got from you here today. It was a pleasure listening to you. Do you have any final motivational suggestion or something that you'd like to share with our listeners? Just the final word.
Yeah, as I said, it's important to use social media and not not to take other aspects of your life. And also, it's important. You will see that when you're ready to just write a really mean comment as to what it is that you're saying, if you just let it go, do something else, just watch a film, I don't know, have fun with friends or talk with nice people. And then when you get back, see if you would be writing the same thing into that comment, or if you would be replying to that comment at all. Engagement is not bad on social media, I would say, and I can tell you that because it's a metric. But on the other hand, good engagement is always much better than, for me, than just engagement.
Exactly. So on that note, once again, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us today on this podcast and sharing your hands-on experience, sharing your knowledge with our listeners. I believe that it was very useful and interesting to listen. Thank you for your jokes. I think I'll be telling this joke now for everyone, but it was very meaningful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And I believe that our listeners also enjoyed the talk, our second podcast, Viz Culture. And please follow us, please comment, share. And as Vasiliss said, let's, instead of wanting to be negative, let's think. Let's do something else, and then maybe let's share some positivity online, and not only online, instead of starting those small fires. So thank you, everyone. If you like our content, if you wish to be our friends, so follow us, and you can always support us on Patreon, and keep up with us, listen to us, and soon you'll hear our third podcast. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.
Viz Culture. This is the podcast about the meaning of concepts in business.